Well, a brand new Gallup poll getting a lot of attention now. It has to do with President Obama's overall approval rating. In September, the president averaged 45% approval among voters, with 48% disapproving of his performance. More importantly, that poll shows that he is losing confidence, though, with a critical group of supporters, middle-class white Americans. Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor, and Lars Larson is a syndicated radio host. Panel, thanks so much for being here. So the racial divide in the latest polls is quite something. According to Gallup, it shows that 91% of blacks support President Obama still, just 36% of whites. When you break it down on racial lines, look at that. What does it tell us, Lars?
Well, it tells you that black Americans, for whatever reason, have decided to support this president, and it's hard not to read the race bias in that, to suggest that the president has failed, his policies have failed, he doesn't appear to be listening to the American public, and the American public has figured that out. And the only ones that are still solidly supporting him by 91% are people who happen to share his skin color. So it's hard not to see that that support is because of skin color. And I would think that if this was reversed, if this was white voters supporting a white candidate in the face of overwhelming failure, that people would say, well, they're supporting him because they're being racist. I think black Americans should be ashamed of those numbers.
What do you make of it, Leslie? Rush Limbaugh raised a similar point to the one Lars just made, saying, he said 91% of American blacks give Obama big-time approval numbers. 36% of whites do. He says, am I the racist because I don't support the regime? Or are the 91% of blacks racist because they do? Is it sort of a blind support based on race?
Well, I think, Megan, I don't want to say birds of a feather flock together, but it's not surprising that certain groups, whether it be based on race, religion, ethnicity, support people. Example, if Mitt Romney were president, I think we'd see Mormon numbers that high. I certainly think if we had a Jewish president, the Jewish community would have numbers that high. This is a group that entrusts this man, not just because of his skin color, but this is somebody they consider from their community, and they want to give him his full time, as a number of whites do. You also have to look at when he was elected president, although a majority of votes came from the white community because we hold the majority of the population, we as whites, but we also have to look at proportionate to the population, and this is not disproportionate to those numbers back then. The black community has also always had a much higher number when you look at the number within the population demographically.
Now, what about, I mean, obviously if you're going
racism.
but let me ask you this, Lars, because you look at the other numbers from this Gallup poll, and it shows that he's still got 57% of the youth voters backing him, 18 to 29-year-olds. 57% still like President Obama, but just 38% of seniors. Now, the seniors tend to be the ones who vote. Not the last presidential election. They voted, but so did finally some young people. Not to the level that the seniors did, Lars, but how does that bode for him, and how does it bode for Democrats?
Well, it doesn't bode very well because the seniors have properly figured out that President Obama just stole $500 billion from Medicare and used it to fund his Obamacare plan. They've also figured out that they're going to really get really badly treated under the Obamacare plan. The death panel's prediction of Governor Palin, I think, are going to turn out to be true, that there are going to be bureaucrats within the federal government who are going to decide what gets covered and what doesn't. If you were a part of that older American group, would you be thrilled with a president who had done that to you? They don't care about race. They care about how he's going to treat them under his federal policies. As for youth voters, I mean, I hate to say it, but young people don't vote. In my neck of the woods, 4% of 18 to 25-year-olds voted in the last presidential election. They basically are a non-number. So whether they support the president or not doesn't matter if they don't bother to go to the polls and cast a ballot.
But the seniors do. And the reason we're even talking about this, Leslie, is that they show that history has shown that presidents who have less than a 50% approval rating, including right now in connection with the midterm election, tend to lose significant seats in both the House and the Senate. So, these may be a harbinger of things to come on November 2nd.
Well, I don't think there's any big surprise there are going to be losses for incumbents on both sides, especially in the House, and I think both sides are ready for that, embracing for that. As to the president, and I've said it before, the better the economy gets, unemployment goes down, the better those numbers will get among seniors and the youth. And remember that the youth did show up in numbers, maybe not in your neck of the woods, Lars, but nationwide for this president, and we're 2 years away from the presidential election, and that is more than 2 lifetimes.
Yeah, and that Gallup poll is actually his highest approval rating if you look at all the polls. Fox News had one that was considerably lower. So if you look at sort of the averages, it's definitely lower than 45. So if anything, the 45 was good news, I guess, from the president from Gallup. But we'll see. Now we have, 28 days to go. We'll wait and see how it all shakes out on election night. Leslie, Lars, thank you both.